folks, welcome back to the channel. It is a balmy 9 degrees outside tonight in upstate New York, up in the Adirondack area, and a bunch of you guys have reached out to me, and I mean a bunch of you guys, so I figured I would make this video today. We're actually going to be, unless you saw the thumbnail, doing basically a learning ECMLINK v3 part 4 today. And this video, again guys, disclaimer before we even get into it, I'm still learning. I'm no expert, right? There's guys out there that have been doing this for years. I'm simply going to relay what I believe I've learned to those of you who have reached out and had numerous questions about the system and numerous questions about how I got my speed density tune set up, how I got, you know, a bunch of other things knocked out. There's a bunch of simple things and there's some more in-depth things, so there should be a little bit for, you know, the seasoned follower, same subscribers that have been following the channel for quite a while now and have learned what I've learned up to this point. And there's some stuff for those of you who are still just dipping your toe in and trying to figure some stuff out. So we're going to do a little bit of basics and a little bit more in-depth stuff, and we're just going to keep moving through it in that way. So I have a list with me. I have the car connected right here. Here's a little list of some stuff. So I guess we're just going to kind of jump right into this and start talking about a couple of things. So let's see, let me figure out what number 1 is, and we're just going to go after it. So anyways, hope you guys are doing good, and let's just jump right into it. The next thing, I have a lot of questions about how I got my wideband set up. My wideband is named AEM wideband in this log. It's the second thing down here under knock retard. You can right click and you can click on preferences at the top, and in this box you can go ahead and change the name. It says display name, and you can put some custom parameters in here. Now I'm using an AEM Series X wideband, so I had to go in and change a couple of things, and this is some of the numbers, the information right here that got my gauge to line up with my data logs. My minimum volts, 1 volt, minimum lambda, 0.66 lambda, my maximum volts are 3.15, and my max lambda is 1.0. Now, with my wideband, they give you a data sheet, and 1 lambda equals 3.15 volts, and 1 lambda is 14.7. So if you're running gasoline, you want your air-fuel ratio to be 14.7 to 1. So by putting in the chart, if you look where 14.7 shows on the chart that is supplied with your wideband, it'll show a voltage. And mine happens to be 3.15 with this particular Bosch LSU9 sensor, I believe is what it is. 3.15 volts equals 14.7 AFR. So that's what I put in here, and 14.7 is 1 lambda. So we're not displaying in lambda on ECMLINK, we're displaying in AFR, and AFR is translated from these volts. So our target's 14.7. These are the numbers I used with an AEM Series X wideband, and it worked out fine. So you can go in and change the name to whatever wideband you have. And you can change the line color, the display on the graph, label color, click apply, and then click OK, and it should change on your screen here. Also, 3.15 volts is 14.7, and that's our AFR we want. If we go into the ECU config log and we go into our NBO2 simulation, you can see we're at 3.16. So we're going to run a little leaner. That's our wideband switch point. So this wideband switch point, the voltage is going to swing around 3.16 volts, and that's going to help the ECU keep the AFR at 14.7 to 1. It's different for each one of the different widebands you get, but I'm using narrowband simulation, so my AEM Series X wideband is in place of the stock front O2 sensor, which would be in the O2 dump by the turbo. You can put it, you can add another bung further down the line, keep your narrowband sensor, and use it, and then log from the rear O2 sensor if you want. There's a bunch of different configurations you can do, but that's what the correlation in the log is to my switch point. 3.16 and 3.16 is what it should say. Under my AEM wideband, it should say 3.16, but it says 3.15. Close. I'm within 0.1 most of the time. Let's see. there's a couple other things. That's number 2 off the list. Let's get number 3. Okay, guys, so number 3 is pretty important. If you want to have an accurate boost or vacuum reference in your data log, you can add boost, you can add ECU boost, and you can add boost estimate to your display here. Now, altitude plays a lot with air density. You hear people that are out in Denver, like if you watch any racing channels on YouTube, when they get up to the Mile High City and they're taking their turbocharged car down the track, and they got to turn the boost way, way, way up to achieve the same amount of horsepower that they would get at lower sea levels. So where I'm at, I believe it's 344 feet above sea level. When you go out to Colorado and you're in Denver, you're way, way up there, so the air isn't as dense. So you need more boost pressure to make the same amount of power up in the mountains as you would down here at a lower elevation. So that also messes with your boost and your vacuum readings. So you're going to want to go into whatever you're logging. If you're logging boost, you're going to go to boost preferences, and it says altitude right here, and you're going to add your altitude in. Google it, it'll show right up. Type that number in here, click apply, click OK, move on. Do that with anything that has to do with boost in here. If you're doing boost est, ECU boost, or a map sensor, save that and just let it be. That way you're more accurate. Our graph values that we can change. If you look in ECMLINK back here in boost again, we can change how far these little graph lines over here on the side swing way up and way down. Like, if you don't want to be logging for a possible 50 pounds of boost, or 45 pounds, I believe is what the graph starts. It gives you minus 29.6 for the vacuum, and then plus 45 psi of boost. You can shrink those parameters down so you're not looking at such a wide view of, or a wide scope of boost possibilities. If your car only runs 15 pounds, you don't need to have your graph showing 45 psi of boost pressure. You can lower that number down. It says minimum and maximum right here. So I leave my minimum alone. Vacuum in this car runs about 22.7 at its most, at its highest. And boost, I never really see higher than 25 psi. So that's the top of my target, and that's going to be displayed on my log. Alright, sorry, camera cut out there. So yeah, we changed a little bit of the view here. We're not looking for 45 pounds of boost. We're looking for 25 pounds of boost and 29.6 inches of mercury of vacuum, and that's fine. Also, the car's off now, guys. You can do that with a couple of different parameters in here. If your AFR is not 14.7 and you're using the air-fuel ratio estimate, you can go in here if you're using ethanol, and you can change it from 14.7. I can't recall, isn't it 12 something, 12 point something for ethanol? I can't recall, but you can change your target AFR at idle to that right here in this box. Click apply, click OK, and that's going to change your AFR that the graph is basing off of. You can also do that in a few other spots. You can go through and just narrow things down so you're not looking at such a huge scope of horsepower, or a huge scope of airflow. If you're only running a stock T25 turbo, you're probably not pushing that thing to 40 pounds of boost or 45 pounds of boost. You can change down to 15 in boost est, ECU boost, and your regular map sensor boost, which mine is just named boost. So that's another one off the list. And mind you, we have about 22, 23 things we're going to have to go over here. So let's move on to the next one. Keep it rolling. Okay, this is a fun one. Adding items to the display here. Now, we're going to first start by right-clicking on our data log while the data log is running, and we're going to go into displayed values. And say you're looking for something specific, like wideband factor. Say you look in here and you don't see wideband factor anywhere in here, and you've gone through this whole list. We also need SD ratio. Forgive me also if you guys have been following along for a while and my screen looks completely different. I actually had to factory restore this laptop. It went a little haywire on me. But anyways, if you go to right click in displayed values and you can't find the value that you're looking for, you stop your stream, or you stop your capture, close it out, and you go in while you're connected to the ECU inputs, and you'll see that box right now is grayed out on mine because I'm disconnected from the car. But you can click on captured values, and you can go through and add any of the other list of items that you don't see under displayed values in a data log. So captured values will bring up a big list. It'll show you a ton of other parameters that you may not have in the displayed values tab. Like in my instance, wideband factor wasn't there, so I had to go into captured values, click it, scroll through. It's just like the same thing we just looked at through our data log screen. I found the item that I wanted to add. I clicked save, pin assignments, and then went back and started a new data log. And when I did that, all I had to do was right click, go to displayed values here, and that brought this box up, and then the items that I had just added when I saved my pin assignments were over here in this left column. I clicked it, clicked add to display, clicked OK, and then boom, the item that I couldn't find earlier is now a part of my data log. Now that being said, if you add a bunch of special stuff or you spend an hour going through and copying my screen here and you want to make sure it stays that way and you don't want it to be different the next time you log in, you're going to have to right click on this log screen and you're going to have to hit set all default preferences, and that's going to save whatever this screen looks like down here. It's going to save it so that when you close ECMLINK and reopen it later, those parameters are all in the same places, the same colors, the same line thickness, and all that. And you won't have to worry about going back through again and re-adding them to the list. Okay, here's one for you. Speed density. A lot of you guys are getting into speed density, and I used a pretty simple method to get my car dialed in. First off, if you're running 450cc injectors, or even if you're running, slightly bigger, you shouldn't have too much of an issue going in and, let me open a data log, going in and getting this thing set up for your initial drive. I know most of the time, as long as you go into your ECU config live settings and you have under fuel, you have the correct injector set, which we're going to come back to, and you go into the MAF comp table and you have speed density selected or the correct stock sensor. If you're running an Evo 8 or 3G sensor, 3-inch, 3.5-inch, 3.75-inch GM sensor, or if you're running speed density, if you have the speed density system selected here, you have disable MAF compensation with speed density operation checkbox checked, and you go back into the miscellaneous tab and you have disable airflow smoothing with speed density operation checked, and all these things are saved. Go into your speed density table here and you have the correct displacement where it says at the top engine displacement. Mine's a 2.0. If yours is a 2.3 stroker, you're going to want to have 2.3 there. As long as that stuff's set up, the factory speed density table should get you fired up. Mine's obviously a lot different, and I've just been messing with it as I've gone. I'm sure this isn't a perfect table to most of you guys out there, but it's smooth-ish for the most part. The transitions from left to right are pretty smooth. There's not massive jumps, and from top to bottom. So if you're having an issue starting the car right in the beginning and it's stalling out and stalling out and stalling out, you're going to want to come in here and adjust your idle cells, which are right here. You're going to highlight them. You can double click, drag, and highlight, and then you can hit the control key and up, and that will raise all those cells up, or you can hit control and down arrow and that will lower those cells. If you need to select them from the keyboard, you can hold shift. I can press the right arrow, go over, and then hold shift, press the down arrow, and it highlights more cells. Then I can hit control up or control down to raise or lower the level, or you can do it cell by clicking. Once you're done, click copy to ECU and try again. Now, that's doing it manually. If you can get your car started and you can get it to idle, you can actually use the system tools that ECMLINK has built into it. It has a speed density wizard, and that will give you a really close idea of what you have to do to make the ECU happy, which numbers need to change. So if we go back into our data log and we let the car idle for a little while, and we have our VE parameter added, we have our SD ratio parameter added. For instance, the VE shows what the car is, I believe, requesting. So if I click on the log right here at this point, it says 0.920. So when I go back into my speed density table and I click track data log, it should be asking for 92%. And if you look, it's requesting 92%. If you go back over here, you'll see your SD ratio. It's actually at 99%. So it's up a little bit here. It's a little off. It's a little off, right? So I go by the VE number and the SD ratio, and I go back into my log and just verify everything's correct. If I have an issue, if the car is running like crap, like right here, I'm looking at my combined fuel trim. It's pretty close to 0, right? So if my combined fuel trim and my LTFT low, mid, high, and short-term fuel trims are all, really, really low, if they're all at like minus 15, I don't have to go in and chase every single cell. I can actually come in here, right-click on this data log, and I can click SD VE adjust, and it uses the combined fuel trim numbers that it's pulling from your log, and it makes those adjustments for you through the ECMLINK speed density wizard. Now you can see these cells right here that are bold, 81, 73, 69, 71.5, 75.5, 79. These dark or bolded numbers here are the suggested changes that it's just told me that I should make to help get my combined fuel trims closer to 0. You can do that a bunch of times. You can drive your car for a week, and every time you drive it, take it nice and easy, and then save the suggestions, copy them to your ECU or save to your ECU, and then drive some more and go from idle to part throttle cruising, then get into some low boost, and every single time keep right-clicking on your data log and seeing its suggestions and copying them to the ECU. And that'll get you pretty close just using the system tools, but also you're going to have to watch out because this system is not perfect. You still have to pay attention to what you're doing. If we look here, we go 62, 64, 67, 79. That's a pretty big jump. You don't want to have huge jumps there. And like right here we have 71, 75, 79, 80. That's a nice, tapered climb. It's going up in small increments. So I would probably adjust, these numbers to within 3, 4, or 5 at the most. You know what I mean? Get them numerically so you're not making a massive jump from 67 to 95 in the next cell neighboring it. So if it says 67 and 79, I'd probably lower these 3 cells personally and redo that whole process of right-clicking with the wizard and see if it brings them all back up again. If so, you might have to make some adjustments in your direct access fuel table, but for the most part, this will get you pretty close. Again, you're going to do all this stuff at your own risk, guys. Read about it. I spent months reading about it. This is just some of the stuff that I've used. So that wizard helps a lot. So if you go back into every single one of your data logs that you make, you pay attention to your knock retard, you're not getting a ton of knock, you're not having a lot of problems while you're driving around, and you're just off a few percent, 5 to 10%. Right click, SDVE adjust combined fuel trim, and boom, it'll suggest it. You see the suggestions. Okay, I like them. Click copy to ECU and keep going. Now, this part of the map right here is around idle. This part of the map right here is decel. Most of this, I believe, is like wrong gear. So if you're in 4th gear going 20 miles an hour, I think it pulls from, depending on RPM, it'll pull from these top few cells. This area where it gets down into 100%, these are your wide open throttle areas. All these greens are like your cruising areas in the map, and this is all RPM based at the top and the load factor down the side. So the more load you have on the engine at any given RPM, the higher cell it's going to pull its data from. So that's how I got this dialed in, and I continued to mess with it and kept tuning it and going through and changing things until I could drive this down the road, get really nice clean data logs. My wideband and my AFR estimate lined right up, as you can tell, 14.6 to 1, 14.6 to 1. My combined fuel trims were plus or minus 5%, which is what you're going to target. You're never going to get it perfect. That's what you want to target, is plus or minus 5%. And none of my short-term or long-term fuel trims were super far out of whack. So short-term fuel trim didn't say 10% lean, and then long-term low and mid were at minus 7. They're all pretty close if you follow these along. And right here, if you look at the VE, it just means the area in the speed density table that it's pulling, it's requesting its fuel from, its fuel flow figure. So if I click, let's see, we'll click this part of the graph. Here, let's move further down the list here. We'll get a number that's out of the 90s. Let me stop double clicking on the wrong thing. All right, right here. Now, what are we at here? Okay, we're requesting 63. The VE says 63. So if we go over here into the speed density table and we hit track data log, we're right around 63, 64. We're at 2,500 RPMs, and it's requesting 64. Now we're getting 63 in the VE table. So it's, you know, plus or minus 1. And that's what that information is pulling from. But for the most part, I just do the, I use the wizard a lot. Like, just to dial it in for the first few weeks, I would come in here and I'd right click and do my SDVE just combined fuel trim multiple times, over and over and over. I did it until I was happy with everything, until I got on the highway and did a highway drive. Then I started getting into, you know, 4 or 5 pounds of boost, and I would follow it, make sure my fuel trims looked happy, make sure I wasn't going, you know, lean anywhere. And for the most part, the program, this right here, the VE adjust combined fuel trim, gets you really, really, really close. And I was super surprised. The only place I really had to work on it a lot was in the 100% areas, the wide open throttle areas. I had to change that up a lot. I had to go in and basically figure out which cells in the speed density table when I was in boost needed to be raised up. And as you can see, the 90s kind of extend up to right about here. I had to add a lot of fuel in some of these parts to make the car happy and to make it pull the whole time without knocking it all. Briefly, we're going to touch on the MAF comp table. Briefly. So if you're setting up a different MAF sensor than stock, if you're running a MAF translator, like I did, and you're running a 3-inch or 3.5 or 3.75 GM sensor, you need to make sure that the MAF translator's adjustments are only set up in the base dial. You need to have the base injector size set up. So if you're running stock 450s, use the paperwork that comes in it and set the base dial. So it's set up for 450s. That's all you got to do. Leave the rest at 0. Don't tune your idle, your mid, or your wide open throttle dial. Leave those at 0 and use ECMLINK's MAF comp table to make those adjustments instead. They're finer adjustments. You can see them live. You don't have to turn any dials. Just change the MAF translator's base injector size to whatever injectors you're running and tune from there in the MAF comp table. Get it all dialed in. Get your combined fuel trim, your wideband factor, all that lined up within plus or minus 5% and go from there. Make sure you're choosing the correct MAF sensor. If you're not sure if you have a 3.75-inch GM sensor or a 3-inch, go to the dollar store and get a ruler. Just measure it. See if it's straight across, if it's 3 inches straight across, or if it's 3.75 inches straight across. That'll give you an idea. Because each one of those sensors gives you a different airflow reading based on your hertz points. If you got an Evo 3 or Evo 8 or 3G MAF in there, select it. So you come into your base MAF type. If you're stock, you click stock. You don't want to disable MAF compensation with speed density operation because you're not using speed density. You're using a stock MAF. You may have to raise these points, these bubbles. Stock, your idle comes between 0 and 100. I believe right around 50 is your first idle point. So if your car starts up but it's really, really lean, you can click this bubble and you can hit the up arrow and you can add some fuel. Every time you raise this up, it adds fuel. Every time you lower it, it removes fuel. So if you raise this up at idle, and you raise the one at 100 right next to it, the neighboring cell, and your idle looks clean, and your combined fuel trims are really close to 0 or plus or minus 5%, anything below that point of idle, you're going to raise up as well, because hypothetically, say your idle looks perfect when these 2 points are raised up right here. But what happens if you take your foot off while you're in gear, and you take your foot off the throttle and go to stop, and all of a sudden the car stalls out and dies? That could be because the idle hertz points dipped so low, there wasn't enough fuel being added in that point, in the 0 column here, or whatever. that it went into stall. So you want to make sure that you set your idle up first, and then you bring the cells below it up to match your idle cells. Everything after that, you have to dial in also. Okay, boys, I don't know if this is going to be 100% accurate, but this is what worked for me. This is the idle air clamp in the ECU Live stuff. If you click on the idle air tab, it brings this up. Now, after I did my clutch and I did my lightweight flywheel, I noticed, I know a lot of people have also had this problem, that when I'd come to stop signs or city driving, stoplights, my engine would almost stall out. It almost would just drop down and stall. I turned the idle air clamp on, I enabled it, and just doing that, just clicking that little box and copying it or saving it to the ECU, fixed that issue for the most part. This makes adjustments for when the throttle closes, that the ECU doesn't get too lean or too rich and stall itself out. It works with the AC off and the AC on, and there's some temperature adjustments that I didn't mess with at all. I just enabled the air clamp and let it ride, and it fixed a good portion of my issues. Also, if you have that issue and you go in, or you come up to a stop sign or a stoplight and you're still falling off and your car stalls, the coasting FC offset number you can add to this, and this basically just gives an offset of fuel, so when you let off the gas, it keeps the engine running. I can't really describe it in the greatest way here. I'm sure some of you guys can chime in the comments and give me some more information on this, but adding this offset, raising this number up, keeps the fuel in the engine, or the fuel injectors open a little bit longer, and kind of keeps the engine from stalling out. So I use the coasting FC offset, and I got mine up to 150 at first, and that was happy. It happened one more time, I raised it up to 190. I haven't had any issues at all since. So if you have a lightweight flywheel and you're stalling out, you can try the idle air clamp, and you can try raising your coasting FC offset number up until you have a nice happy medium and you're not stalling at stop signs anymore. So boys, basically, if you don't want to see the cylinder misfire, if you want it to be enabled, you're going to click it so that way it checks for it. If you don't want to see it, you leave it unchecked. So that's how that works. Automatic transmission, closed loop, idle control, fuel trim, cat efficiency, MDP, all that. If you want to have it, DTC check run for it, you click it. I don't want that checked. I don't want the cat efficiency checked. I don't want to see cylinder misfire. If you have a 6-bolt and a 2G, I guess cylinder misfires happen quite frequently with that swap from the cam angle sensor being installed. Uncheck the box. Let's move on to, let's see. This is a big one. If you guys are in your logs and you notice that when you stab the throttle, your wideband factor goes through the roof. Let's see if I can find an example of such. I might be able to, I might not be able to, but bear with me. Alright, right here we get into 4 PSI. We're going to add the TPS delta. That's this figure right here. This scale, I think I've covered this in one of the other ones. It correlates to the base tip and adjust in direct access. Alright, so if you're driving down the street and you happen to stab the throttle, and right here you see this green line spikes way up, we'll do right here. Spikes way up right here. That's my wideband factor, mind you. And we scroll over to it, and you can see it's at minus, I don't know, it's not going to be at minus. It's at 21% lean. It's saying it's adding 21%. It wants to add 21%, right? If you see that happening, you see these little spikes at the bottom of the screen. If I zoom in further here, this is TPS delta popping up. It logs 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. It will show up on your log screen. This is basically when you stab the throttle to get going. If you get a lean spot, or your car stutters or whatever, and you need a little bit more fuel when you stab that throttle, like a bigger squirt injected of fuel to get you initially started, to, if you push that throttle down real hard and you get a little hiccup there, or you feel it stutter. Most of the time, if you log TPS delta, it will show you a little hump right here in your data log, and in this case, you can see it's a 1. So that little purple hump right there, that little blip, shows me a 1. So I would go in here and base tip and adjust, key on engine off of course, and I would click on this column here and it brings me to this bubble. Number 1, I would raise it 1 click at a time until TPS delta no longer shows up in my log. As you can see, most of these numbers right here are different. Well, the first few are different than stock. If I click these arrows, this shows you the stock figures. I had to adjust the 0, the 1, the 2, the 3, and the 4 is where it starts to be stock again. And that just basically injects a bigger spray of fuel when the throttle goes from closed to open really fast, or wide open really fast. It'll cause the injectors to get a big shot of fuel into the engine to kind of start you up on ramping into boost. Big help right there. Definitely love that function. And with that being said, guys, that's going to bring us to our last thing. And it's a simple one. It's kind of a fun one. If you have ECMLINK and you copy your tables kind of like mine are, and you're trying to, change the line color and you're trying to change your display color, you can do that with every single one of these different parameters. If you want to have every single, like if I want LTFT low to be purple, then mid be green, then orange for high, then short-term fuel trim be aquamarine. I want to have the size of the display different. Like you can see my knock retard is big compared to wideband, and it's red compared to wideband. You can do that by right-clicking on any one of these and clicking preferences for that. And it's going to be right at the top of the pop-up box. Intake temp. If I want to change that, I hit intake temp preferences. I can change the name of this. I can change the units that it's in. I can change the minimum and maximum for air temps. This goes all the way up to 383 degrees Fahrenheit or down to minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a huge scale. I could tighten that up a lot if I wanted to. My intake temps are never over 120 degrees. So I could change that all the way down to a max of 140 and a minimum of, we'll say, minus 15, because it never really gets below minus 15 unless you're taking the wind chill into account. I can click on a dashed thick line, so it'll be a dashed line up here, and it'll be thick. I can have a regular, just big, thick line compared to these other thin lines. I can change the color of it. I can change the font size. I can change the label color, and the label meaning knock retard in this would be label color red and line color red. This one is label color black for AEM wideband and line color purple. All you have to do is hit apply, and then you're done. You can do that with all of these. Also, at the top, you have some other little quick functions. So right in here, it's the highest point of boost. If I click 1 to 1, it zooms all the way out. There it is again. Center that in the screen. Boom, by hitting the button next to it. Now it's centered. Now I just have to hit the up arrow, and that shows me the highest point of boost that I hit while driving in this log. So again, we're going to zoom back over here. We'll click here. We want to see the highest point of boost. We click the 1 to 1, the first little magnifying glass. Then we click on a certain spot in our log that we want to zoom in on. Hit the middle magnifying glass. It's going to center it. And now all we have to do is hit the up arrow, and it's going to zoom us right into that spot. Then down arrow zooms us back out. There's a bunch of short keys that you can learn through ECMLINK. You can look them up on ECMLINK Wiki, or DSM Tuners has some information about it. There's also some other functions up here. You can edit the graph view preferences. You can change the fonts that are showing up. You can change your global settings. Let's see. What else can we do here? Oh, this is another one. If you come up here in the top left and you click on app preferences, you go edit app preferences, you can change the general units from grams to pounds, or Fahrenheit to Celsius, or PSI to kilograms, or PSIA, or bar for metrics. You can change your injector size data from pounds an hour instead of cc's per minute. Your air fuel mixture you can change from AF ratio to lambda, metric or imperial. Click apply, and it's going to save it. You can also modify ports, which is what you connect your ECU to the laptop through the cable. Look and feel is another one you can do. If you don't like the basic setup that ECMLINK gives you, you can come in here and you can click on all the different options, and it shows an example right here of what this looks like. Then on the right side you can change themes. So right here, if you want a dark theme, this is what it's going to look like right here. There's dark star, desert blue, there's a bunch of different ones. It changes the interior line colors, a couple other things in the folders, the fonts, the backgrounds, all that stuff. So this one zooms it in just a little bit. Sky bluer, sky blue and sky bluer. Then there's sky bluer Tahoma, sky green. There's just a bunch of different ones, and you can click on all of these. Nimbus is this one right here. Nimbus is what comes, I believe, on Apple. So that might be something you're used to seeing with the little sliders and some other stuff. You can change it right here by going Edit and Application Preferences, clicking Apply, then OK, and that will change everything. That's a pretty cool little function here. If you've made a crap ton of changes to your fueling and your combined fuel trim looks like it's still out of whack, and LTFT low, mid, high, and short-term fuel trims are still funny, they don't look like they're adjusting anymore, you can click up here to ECU and you can reset fuel trims. You can do it while the car's running if you want, and that's going to zero all these back out, and it's going to pull fresh information to give you fresh numbers displayed here after you've made massive fuel changes. Say you've been trying to dial in injectors for a while and you keep getting it wrong and you want to fix it. Try, you got your car idling correctly, try resetting your fuel trims to verify that the information here you're seeing is correct, that the sensors are giving you the same numbers you were getting before, then hunt for a different option to make adjustments as needed. If you download ECMLINK for the first time and you're at ecmtuning.com and you need to create a firmware request, you can create that here, and you can go on to ecmtuning.com, downloads and firmware request or firmware update, and you can use this file to request a firmware update to get the latest firmware for your laptop and get the latest and greatest version of ECMLINK. You can come in here and see all the short keys that you can click. You can disconnect from the ECU by hitting F2. You can go into config by F5. You can go to direct access by hitting F6. Captured values, F10. You can start a new stream, F11. You can start a capture by hitting F12 on your keyboard instead of clicking the boxes if you want to. ECU config from log is F7. Direct access is F8. If you read next to it, it shows you all of these little short keys if you don't want to have to hunt through the menus and you just want to remember that one specific thing. Say you like to zoom a lot. If you hit Control plus A, it's going to zoom you all the time. If you want to zoom into your selection, you just hit the space bar. So clicking over here in the log, you can double click it or you can hit the space bar and it puts it right in the center of your screen. Alright guys, that is everything for today's episode. I know it was a long one. We went over a ton of stuff. Your questions sent to todaysprojectguide@gmail.com and your comments posted and your messages over on Instagram compiled this big list of questions and answers for this video today. You guys are the driving force between me learning this stuff and trying to figure out more about it. I want to learn more so I can share more with you guys and help you guys figure some stuff out. Again, I'm no professional here. I'm a hobbyist. I'm having some fun at my house on my own car, so do all this stuff at your own risk. Don't blow your car up. Be smart. If you're not confident, read more about it. There's plenty of different outlets, YouTube channels, wiki pages, dsmtuners.com, and you can go on and you can type your questions and use the search function on Tuners and find some more information about the question you have, or just search it on Google, man. I do it all the time, and it helps a lot. Certain things don't really get explained as in-depth as they could be or as I would like them. So I'm a visual guy for the most part. Veritasium channel says that it's not a real thing, that you can't be a visual learner. Maybe that's so. It still gives me comfort seeing somebody else do it and trying to follow it from there. Again, I'm going to tag Scott Laird's channel down below if you guys want to see some great information on ECMLINK. He's one of the OGs that's been doing this for a while. He knows a lot of great stuff. Super smart guy. If you're not a member of his channel, go subscribe there. Also, if you don't know who Jaffromobile is, guys, if you don't, I'm not even going to say it. If you don't know who Jaffromobile is, I don't know. Unsubscribe here. I don't know what to tell you guys. No, don't unsubscribe. Go check out Jaffro if you don't know him. If you guys have been longtime subscribers, you feel like you've learned something here, and you want to help further support this channel, check out todaysprojectguide.com. We have a bunch of different merch. Grab yourself something. If this information helped you get your car started up for the first time in a few months, you finally understand something, go ahead and pick yourself up a hat, a sweater, a t-shirt, a sticker, something like that. And all that money goes right back into doing more videos for you guys. So I'm going to end it there. Hopefully you guys got something out of this. And shoot me more questions at today'sprojectguide@gmail.com if you have them, or post them on the comments below. Anyways, guys, stay warm, take care. Thanks for watching. We'll see you right back here in the next one. Adios.